Good afternoon. In this video, I'm going to review the latest video put up by Gene Kim, where Old Testament saints went Abraham's bosom of limbo. Now, if you believe what guys like Robert Breaker say, and Gene Kim, I guess, I'm getting some email from other Breaker people. They weren't saved in Abraham's bosom because the blood hadn't been shed yet. Well, you have a group of people down there who aren't lost, not in torments, and they're not saved, according to Robert Breaker. Well, what would that put them in? A type of limbo. Neither lost nor saved. So he's going to jump up and down. Now, Ruckman says they're saved in Abraham's bosom. So these guys who say they're unsaved, Ruckman says in his reference Bible, these are saved people, both Old Testament, Gentiles and Jews. So these guys are going against even what Ruckman said. But Ruckman has 5 plans of salvation. If you want a plan of salvation confusion, you go to Ruckman. He's got works. He's got faith plus works. He's got faith alone. He's got works in the millennium. Now remember, he says grace goes from Genesis 1 to Revelation 22. How do you mix works with grace based on Romans 11:6? How do you do that? Romans 11:6 is a general statement. If it's of works, it's not of grace. If grace is not of works. The only thing that goes with grace is faith. So let's see here as Gene Kim starts babbling. And you got all these guys here following him there now. And by the way, I don't know if I haven't seen Max Bauer put up an excellent video. So I don't know if he's posted it, if he's kept it private, whatever. Which link shows you that people teaching dispensational salvation are fringe. The overwhelming majority of dispensationalists believe in faith alone in every dispensation. So you got to go to his, I think it's called Who Teaches Dispensational Salvation. So when these guys are telling you they're real dispensationalists, they're lying to you.
So we believe in a doctrine called dispensational salvation. So what does that mean? What that means is that we believe that in the Bible, Christians were saved by faith alone, not by works. Amen? Faith alone, not by works. But there's a problem. There are verses that seems to show faith and works for salvation.
Seem to show.
Our simple solution is to divide.
Our simplistic solution. They seem to show faith and works. So our simplistic solution is we'll just cut them to pieces. We'll agree with the cults and the false denominations, say, oh yeah, you're right about that. There is faith and works, but they're just not in this dispensation.
Those verses are referring to Old Testament Jews. And then the verses that talk about salvation by works will refer to the tribulation Jews. But there's a group out there that hates this doctrine of dispensational salvation.
Yeah, they're called dispensationalists. There's a group out there who hate this doctrine. The overwhelming majority of King James Bible believing dispensationalists hate this doctrine because it's a lie from the pit of hell. It's a lie from the pit of hell saying that God would allow someone to be saved by his works. Then he could boast.
We're going to be very dishonest by getting rid of these lines and combining it all together for one full salvation by faith. That is total dishonesty.
It's not dishonesty. It's exactly what it is. God is consistent with faith alone through every dispensation. What's divided are the Gospels. The Jews want the kingdom gospel, for instance. So he has a long division there. He thinks the faith alone needs to be divided, when in fact what's divided are the different gospels that are being offered.
And that is not dividing the scriptures where you can rescue a lot of people.
Rescue.
Okay, so
now they want to tell you that people have been teaching faith alone in every dispensation for 200 years and getting people saved out of cults, and they're going to tell you now this bunch of baloney is going to get people out of the cults.
We insist right here that definitely our Christian salvation has no works whatsoever. It's faith alone. How can
He has a sinner's prayer, by the way, which has asking, which conflicts with believing.
we easily believe that? Is because we divide it. So those verses in the
He's wrongly dividing.
Old Testament that talks about works for salvation, including the tribulation, it's just for those time periods, for those group of people. Jews in either the Old Testament or tribulation. Christians are not bound to that. Now, here are some of the dishonest arguments they're going to use to try to prove, no, it was all one salvation by faith.
Yeah, there's no one salvation by faith. Yeah, what was division is the Gospels, not the salvation plan. They make a big deal about different Gospels, and they say, well, people are looking forward to the cross, and they scorn that and everything. But in effect, as Max Bauer points out, they really were looking forward to the cross. They just didn't know they were looking forward to the cross. It was kind of obscure to them. They didn't know, but they really, in a sense, they were, because there was blood. They sacrificing animals. The blood was involved. They had the idea of a coming Messiah, a seed. They just didn't understand the post-cross clarity of it. That's why you see the apostles who were all saved. By the way, the 13 apostles, the 11 apostles were all called clean by Jesus Christ in John 13. And what Kim calls that is an exception. Oh, that was just an exception. These guys, man. Robert Baker.
It's not going to convince a cult out there.
It's not going to convince a cult out there. So these guys. You know what? James White goes against the King James Bible so hard against, because he says, well, you really can't win cults with the King James Bible. See, if you can change the translations and things, you can manipulate things to make the wording sound better to reach the cults and argue against the cults and argue apologetics against the cults. That's why he goes against the King James Bible. Same reason. He has an apologetic ministry. And he's against the King James Bible because he thinks, well, these cults aren't going to believe that Bible back in the 17th century and has inaccuracies, blah, blah, blah. And that's the same excuse this guy's using here.
I have argued with cults out there, and I tried to use the method of trying to make it faith alone in all verses. It don't convince them.
It don't convince them? It doesn't convince them? It don't convince them.
But when I divide it, do you know how many times they shut their mouth? You know what the evidence
Oh, yeah, I believe this guy. A cult member is going to sit there and say, I didn't understand the dispensations. That's what the difference is. I didn't understand about dispensations. You're right. A cult member is unsaved. He's not going to grasp anything about a doctrinal intricacy like cults, dispensationalism. The guy is such a fake.
The evidence is I go out and do soul winning. A lot of you probably don't, who hate dispensational salvations. Okay.
Oh, so what this guy wants to tell you that he can lie and also tell people to believe the sinner's prayer, say the sinner's prayer. That he's going out and telling a person, well, I got this Jehovah's Witness guy, and he's got these faith works scriptures. And what I just tell him, I said, you just put that in the Old Testament and believe the Christians about have no faith or works. That's going to convince him. That's what he wants you to believe. A Mormon's going to believe that. Jehovah's Witness is going to believe that. A Seventh-day Adventist is going to believe that. Oh, I just didn't realize we were in a different dispensation. Thank you, Gene Kim. I didn't know that.
Anyway, let's return to the point right here. In Luke chapter 16, verse 28, what we believe is this. We believe that there's a place called Abraham's bosom. Abraham's bosom. Now, in Abraham's bosom, why did Old Testament saints go over there? They had to go over there because Jesus did not die on the cross yet. Because Jesus did not die on the cross yet, their sins were not completely taken away. So because of that, these Old Testament saints, they had no choice but to go to Abraham's bosom.
Now get that, their sins weren't taken away. So go to Romans 4 and see what David says, blessed is the man whose sins are covered. So they want to make David part of the New Testament salvation. But New Testament, but David's not talking about having the sins taken away. He talked about his sins being covered. So these liars tell you, David's just prophesying about a New Testament type of salvation. He wasn't prophesying anybody. He's talking about his own salvation.
Now, the funny thing is that these people, they accuse us for teaching this like limbo. And then when I call them out that, no, this is not limbo, you know what their best argument against this is? Their best argument is, Gene Kim doesn't even know what I'm arguing about. I didn't say it was limbo. I said it was like limbo. Cuckoo, cuckoo.
No, I didn't. I said if you listen to you guys who are saying no one's saved in the Old Testament, it would be like limbo.
Cuckoo. There's something strange right here.
Really?
That's your best argument. That I don't understand arguments? I apologize. I was wrong. I'm wrong. I'm so sorry.
The guy's cracking up. The fact of the matter is, if you have, like Robert Breaker is saying, people in the Old Testament, Abraham bosom, who aren't saved, but aren't in torments, what you've got is a kind of limbo. We didn't say it was limbo. Limbo doesn't exist. But he doesn't understand arguments because he's brain dead. Just like Robert Breaker.
You disprove dispensational salvation. So let me correct myself. Like limbo, and whenever I say limbo, can some of you correct me, please, out of respect for our opponents? Thank you. Okay, if I say limbo accidentally, say like limbo, okay?
He's not telling you what the basis of the argument is. According to these guys, according to Robert Breaker, the blood hadn't been shed yet, so they weren't really saved. So what do you got there? You got people in Abraham's bosom who, according to Robert Breaker, and I guess according to Gene Kim, Ruckman says they're saved. The blood hadn't been shed yet, so these people weren't saved yet. And yet they weren't in torments, and torments, that's when we know people who are lost go. So what are you going to call these people? They're not saved, but they're not lost. What would you say they were? In limbo.
Right, so, like limbo, quote unquote, they were stuck with their sins over there until Jesus died and rescued them. But they had no choice but to go by the law. Because remember, faith and works under the Old Testament, so they had no choice but to go by the law.
See that? Faith. See how sloppy he is? Faith and works in the Old Testament? Well, you go about 1,000 years in the Old Testament, there was no law. See how sloppy they are, people. The Old Testament, what about Enoch? What about Noah? What about Abraham before the law? See, now they're putting in the Old Testament under, like the entire Old Testament was under the law.
Oh, that's nonsense. But that's nonsense? Okay, look at Luke chapter 16. Let's see what Abraham's bosom is. Look at verse 24. Let's look at verse 27. Then he said, I pray thee therefore, Father. So this is Abraham's bosom, remember, where the rich man, Lazarus, and Abraham are at. That thou wouldest send him to my father's house. For I have 5 brethren, that he may testify unto them, lest they also come and...
No, the rich man isn't in Abraham's bosom. The rich man is in torments. Again, see how sloppy these guys are? Abraham's bosom is on one side of a gulf. Abraham's bosom is this part where saved people went.
To this place of torment. So the rich man doesn't want his brothers to burn in hell. So underneath...
You mean torments?
The earth, there's a place of comfort, Abraham's bosom, and a place of torment, hell. The rich man says, I don't want them to go to hell. He wants them where? In Abraham's bosom. So what does Abraham say right here? How they get there. Verse 29. Abraham saith unto him, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and that they have Moses and the prophets.
You see works? They have I see he wants to put the gospel up there. They have the writings, Moses and the prophets. Nothing about doing any works. Moses and the prophets are going to lead you to Jesus Christ. What did the Lord say about the Moses and prophets speaking about? They spoke about him.
And hear that. Wow.
Whoa.
Wow, read the verse as it says.
Yeah, we read the verse as it says. Moses and the prophets. And what do Moses and prophets speak of? Who Jesus Christ is. That's why Jesus Christ rebuked the men in the road to Emmaus when he says he opened up the Old Testament to him. It says the Moses, the writings, the prophets all spoke of Jesus Christ coming.
They want to get all delivered. Read the verse as it says. It never said law. Oh my goodness.
It doesn't say law. It's talking about Moses and the prophets, just like the Lord Jesus Christ said, that they were pointing to him coming.
29. Moses and the prophets, right? That is undoubtedly the law. But if you doubt that, then let's look at verse 16. The what? Law and the prophets were until John. Okay, cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo.
The law and the prophets were unto the law is considered of division. It's not dealing with the actual keeping the law and the instance for the purpose of salvation. It's considered part of the division of the Old Testament Hebrew Bible, the law, the Mosaic writings. So just the fact you see law doesn't mean they had to keep the law for salvation. That's just the way the Bible was divided.
Before you embarrassed yourself by critiquing me online, I rescued you by mentioning that verse. That way you can pull up a better argument against me next time. I'm giving you...
Oh, Kim, you are so easy to refute. And if you were half as smart as you think you are, you'd be a genius. The law and the prophets just referring to how the books are divided. It's not the idea they had to keep the law for salvation. Saying, well, what about keeping the law for salvation?
There's so much advantage right here. You can spend endless days studying and trying to debunk...
The law and the prophets were until John. That just means that the law and the prophets were pointing to Jesus Christ. That's all. Old Testament writings have found their culmination when Jesus Christ showed up. That's who the law and the prophets were pointing to. The law is a division of the book.
Me and spend hours and hours. All I need is a few minutes through the Word of God.
Look at this guy.
Okay, now anyways, here's another thing. Look at Hebrews 9. Hebrews chapter 9. Hebrews 9.
Were they saved in Abraham's bosom? That's what I want to hear. Because according to Robert Breaker, they weren't saved.
Hebrews 9. Some of you people out there, I really, really pity you. And I mean that. My heart goes out to you when you fall into these wicked people who attack Bible-believing preachers and dispensational salvation.
This is why I attack them, people. This haughty, arrogant, puffed-up egomaniac thinks because he found a division in the Bible which is called law, which is just starting with Mosaic, the Mosaic covenant, Mosaic law, part of the scriptures. And he thinks, oh, see that? The law and the prophets. It doesn't say anything about anybody getting saved by the law. It's just that the law and the prophets pointed to Jesus Christ.
Who, the Bible-believing preachers and the doctrine, rescued a lot of souls out there. You don't...
No one rescued any souls with this false doctrine, Kim. He wants to act like faith alone people weren't saving people out of the cults for 200 years.
Don't believe me, the evidence is the people here and all the endless emails and phone calls I get. Okay, that's my evidence.
That's the same thing Robert Breaker says. I get a lot of emails. Yeah, right.
I don't know about you people out there because you're locked up at home so busy destroying Bible believers. That's a mental issue. I hope that you will open your eyes and really look at yourself right here. This is a...
Oh, we look at ourselves very clearly. We know you know what you're talking about. This is a man who's lying to you. Robert Breaker lies to you. All these guys lie to you. And are telling you that God is going to save people by works. And Robert Breaker says they weren't even saved in Abraham's bosom. That's why it would be type of limbo. How do you get people who are in a place where they're neither saved nor lost? What would you call that?
Big problem for you guys. There's something wrong with your heart and spirit. Do you honestly believe God will bless your arguments when you have that kind of heart and spirit?
Yeah. Because I'm telling the truth, unlike you. Like he's going to tell you, he sits down with Jehovah's Witness and tells them dispensationalism. An unsaved Jehovah's Witness and says, here's how I explain those faith works passages in the Old Testament. And the Jehovah's Witness says, oh, I didn't see that.
I don't have that. What I do is I always think about souls, one. I also consider about their...
Then you have sinner's prayer.
Arguments, the good ones. I'll bring it up right here. Two, number three...
You haven't brought anything up. The essential argument about limbo is the idea that these people in Abraham's bosom, according to you guys, aren't supposed to be saved or lost. Now, Ruckman says they're saved. But if you have a group of people in a location, after they're dead, who are neither lost nor saved, that would be a kind of limbo, wouldn't it? He hasn't addressed the argument.
Number three, I want to do it where I edify people.
You're not edifying anybody by telling people that 15 means ways of getting saved and through the Bible.
How is not to go on a jihad against Bible-believing creatures?
A jihad. Here we are making videos, and these guys are cracking up. A jihad. Because they can't handle being exposed as liars. I'm going to put this up, and continue dealing with him in the next video. Jihad. See, that's what they are. He has to sum up the argument. It would be a type of limbo, according to Robert Breaker, and anybody who thinks that we're not saved because the blood hadn't been shed yet. What do you have? People who aren't saved yet are not lost. So what are they doing? What are they? A person's either saved or lost in the world, people. You go from one or the other in every dispensation. You're either spiritually dead or you're spiritually alive. There's no middle. There's no middle ground where you're kind of like in the middle, floating around and say, well, kind of like, maybe. That's what they want you to believe. And he gives the excuse why we're winning people from the cults. Who's teaching this to win people from the cults, people? He wants you to believe that this doctrine's going out there and saving people from the cults, just like the, James White and his apologetics. Cults aren't dealing with this issue. They don't know what you're talking about and saying, well, yeah, but salvation is by faith alone in the New Testament, so all the other passages you ignore because it's a different dispensation. They say, what are you talking about? What is they don't even believe in dispensations. So he's been exposed again, and the connotation of law and prophets is dealing with a break in the Old Testament canon. The writings, the law, and the prophets. It's not talking about saving the law. It's just talking about that was the law. And so it basically has certain books were under that heading. Prophets, the way the Old Testament canon was divided differently than our canon, Old Testament canon, where you had the writings of Moses considered the law, like Genesis. Genesis wasn't the law. Yet it's considered part of the law in the Jewish canon. The law and the prophets. Well, the law, the way it was divided in the Old Testament canon, started with Genesis, because it was written by Moses. So let's put this up here, and show you they're cracking up. That's why I keep the pressure on people. A jihad. Oh, this is so. I'm going to show you the law and prophets. I just showed you. Genesis had no law in it. The law didn't start with Genesis. It started with Exodus. Last I saw. Let's put this up. Amen. Thank you.